Lex Squad, and today's video we'll be watching disturbing 10 of them videos of Nickelodeon. I don't know what happened, but we'll definitely find out. Don't forget to comment down below if you see anything weird, or if you have any suggestions for 3 video ideas. Comment down below. Don't forget to smash the subscribe button, smash the like button. Let's get this video up to 25,000 likes, or at least maybe 5 at the least. Don't forget to follow my social medias down here, alongside my girlfriend and my brain's not working, so and my artist profile. I'll link them in the description box below. Don't forget to bang that bell button so you never miss any of my content. And join my Lex Squad so you can become part of the fam. And once I make that join button come, join that. And all that being said, let's see what disturbing truth behind Nickelodeon shows has for us tonight. Alright guys, we're gonna watch this one. 10 disturbing Nickelodeon theories.
The Rugrat theory starts this dark list off in at number 10. This disturbing theory about the Rugrats have been circulating around the internet for many years. A lot of you guys probably already know. Basically, it says that all of the characters from our beloved 90s cartoon series, they're all dead and they're just all figments of Angelica's diabolical imagination. Okay, wait, what? You're telling me that Tommy and Chucky are actually dead? Well, according to this theory, Chucky died in 1986 with his mother, and that's why his father is a nervous wreck. Tommy was born in 1988, but he was a stillborn. That's why his father is constantly in the basement building toys for his son that he never got a chance to live. And twins were actually aborted in the 1990. I mean, I think my childhood is literally ruined now, and it's only the start of this list. Number 9, the Smurfs are racist. Well, that was pretty blunt, but let's take a look at our beloved Smurfs. You know, the blue little guys. This theory is referring to the Smurfs as blue supremacists, and I'll explain why. Apparently the Smurfs are actually a racist and Nazi-like cult because of their pointed white hat and their leader's pointed red hat, which is pretty related to the KKK. And let's talk about how the first comic strip titled The Black Smurfs is actually pretty inappropriate when you analyze it. In this comic, when the Smurfs become sick, they turn black. And when they become black, they lose all traces of their intelligence, they can no longer speak. Because of this, US publishers refused to publish this comic, and years later the Smurfs were actually recolored from blue to purple. I didn't know that. Well, there are so many other racist moments that can be found in the Smurfs, but I'm not trying to make this video an hour long and, you know what, demonetized, so let's move on. Doug is actually insane, and this takes us to number 8. This is a classic cartoon from the 90s about a nerdy boy with a highly overactive imagination. You gotta love that intro. But let's get back to the topic on hand. There are a ton of theories about Doug being insane or that he's suffering from a mental disorder. Some say that he was diagnosed with schizophrenia, and good example of this is when Doug almost rode his bike into traffic while he was having one of his fantasies or hallucinations. And his daydreams are so vivid and extreme that he isn't able to separate his reality from fantasy. Because of this, he nearly kills himself on numerous occasions. But what do you guys think? Does our friend Doug have an undiagnosed medical condition or just an overactive imagination? Alright, next up on this list, number 7, Ren and Stimpy. So basically, looking back at this entire show, I'm just gonna go out and say it. Everything is wrong with this show. But seriously, literally everything about this show is messed up, and I can't believe that our parents actually let us watch this when we were younger. In case you guys forget what this show was like, well, let me give you guys a little bit of a sample.
Do you think we could... Oh, poo-poo. You're probably too tired again. Oh, Stimpy!
Is this real life right now? What did we just watch? Apparently the show wasn't supposed to be targeted towards kids, but I know a lot of people who used to watch this when we were younger. There are a lot of sexual innuendos, and it's definitely not appropriate for kids, but somehow it was only rated 13+. So if you were a 13-year-old, you were allowed to watch this. list. Moving on to number 6, Doug is on drugs. I mean, I'm so disappointed with this one. This was absolutely one of my favorite ones to watch. I mean, just say no, Doug. You're just a child. You have your whole life ahead of you. One fan seems to think that Doug was actually on some hardcore drugs, and who was his dealer? His sister, Judy. I mean, wow, these kids need to get their shit straightened out. I think we should all nominate them to go on the show Scared Straight. That might teach them a lesson. But this theory is actually making a lot of sense. Doug constantly has delusions or daydreams, and they're all from him tripping out on drugs. We also see that his sister Judy gets super angry when Doug goes into her room, so she's probably trying to protect her drug stash, you know, keep her money hidden. But why would Doug want to go on these heavy drugs? Did something traumatizing happen to him? Maybe that's another theory that we can explore in a future video. Alright, number 5 brings us over to the show CAILLOU, and let's talk about CAILLOU's baldness. I know I'm not the only one wondering why this whiny kid is still bald at the age of 4 years old, but as it turns out, there is a dark explanation for this. This theory has been around for years, and it says that CAILLOU actually has cancer. I mean, I actually kind of feel really bad for calling him a whiny kid. Although CAILLOU is aware that he has cancer, he uses his imagination all the time to go on adventures because he's not sure whether or not he'll be able to grow up. If that wasn't dark enough for you guys, some users actually believe that CAILLOU is already dead, and that's why his grandmother is the one telling stories about his life. She wants to keep the memory of her grandson alive. I mean, is this real life right now? Moving up this list, number 4, Steve from Blue's Clues is on a very long drug-induced trip. I actually had the chance to see a lot of the filming for Blue's Clues, a lot of behind the scenes, met a lot of the actors, and it's a really cool show. Well, let me show you guys this clip.
Oh, hi. Do you hear something? Yeah.
No, Steve, you gotta lay off the drugs. You have your whole life ahead of you. Well, Blue's Clues might not be as innocent as we all thought. This theory states that Steve is actually a single dad who lives in a crack house with his neglected child. Well, do you guys remember hearing a child's voice in the episode? Well, listen to this.
Listen, do you know who's making those sounds?
Shovel and pail.
Oh yeah, it's Shovel and Pail.
Yeah, Steve, it's your poor child trying to talk to you. Apparently that voice is Steve's actual child trying to get his attention, and Blue is just a stuffed dog from Steve's childhood. Dill is brain damaged, and this sad theory takes us to number 3. You guys know Dill, right? Little Dilly? The Rugrats? Well, the Rugrats was one of the best cartoons from the 90s. The show was definitely a fan favorite, and we all fell in love with Tommy, Chucky, and the rest of the Rugrats. But what if I told you guys something that might ruin the show? Are you still with me? Well, do you guys remember Dill Pickles? He was Tommy's younger brother and Angelica's cousin, the evil Angelica. So as it turns out, Angelica hit him super hard on the head because she clearly has some unresolved anger issues. But sadly, this punch to the head caused the little baby Dill to suffer from extensive brain damage. If you guys go back and rewatch Rugrats with this theory in mind, you will see it in a whole new perspective, like a whole new cartoon. So yeah, say goodbye to your happy childhood, and I'm sorry. Next up, number 2, Dora is being controlled by strangers. Finally, Dora is making an appearance on this list. Dora the Explorer follows the adventures of a bilingual girl traveling around the world. To help her out with her adventures, she often turns to the camera and asks for advice. Well, as it turns out, Dora is a prisoner and she has lost her ability to have free will. She has to constantly ask strangers what to do next, and we control her every move. It's kind of like a cartoon version of The Truman Show. Everyone is watching her, but she's not able to make her own decisions. Instead, she has to wait for a ton of strangers to scream at her through the screen to make all of her life decisions. Do you guys think that Dora actually wants to run around the world on top of mountains, go diving in oceans, or travel into space? No. The answer is no. No, she doesn't. But doesn't matter what she wants to do, no, because we control Dora. And at number 1, we have a serial killer on our hands. We're talking about cartoons and serial killers. I mean, these two just shouldn't mix. So the question is, who could potentially be a killer? And what show are they from? Take a wild guess. Let me know in the comment section below. I'll give you guys a moment or two. Let me know what you guys think, but I'm gonna reveal it now. And it's not Angelica or Roger. It's actually Tommy's father, Stu Pickles. I mean, who would have known? I'm really wondering what let you guys guess in the comment section. And hold on, wait a minute here. First we learned that Diddy Pickles might be an adult star, and now we find out that Stu could be a serial killer. I mean, poor Tommy. I feel bad for the guy. I feel bad for the baby. I feel like we should all storm the Pickles house and save him. Put hashtag save Tommy in the comment section below. Let's try to get him saved. But let's go back to this crazy theory that it could be true. It could be plausible, because why not? From what we know, Stu is an unstable guy who has an obsessive personality and makes jello at 4 in the morning because his life is falling apart. So he's already got a lot of serial killer tendencies. But then in one episode, Stu takes Tommy to the post office to send out some mail. But once Tommy looks inside of the mail chute, he sees a corpse. Maybe Stu was taking Tommy to where he disposes his bodies, his dead bodies. I think he wanted to introduce Tommy to the family business. I mean, how many generations has this been going on for? In at number 10. You think from the title of the show that it's exclusively about Arnold, but I'm here to share you guys a new perspective. Apparently, Hey Arnold is secretly about the antagonist, Helga, and her depression. Well, stay with me for a minute. Helga is a mean bully who constantly picks on Arnold, calling him, hey football head, but secretly she's in love with him. Well, let's review the facts. In the intro, Helga can be heard screaming, hey Arnold, several times. She's the only person in the show that has her own monologue in every episode, so it can be possible that everything we're seeing is actually from her point of view. I mean, pretty interesting, right? Well, her life isn't that glamorous, so that's why she feels the need to bully the one person she loves the most. Her father is extremely neglectful, and her mother is an alcoholic. So maybe this show is all about her obsession with Arnold and how she copes with her miserable life by focusing just on him. And you know what? I warned you guys that this is gonna get pretty dark. Up next, number 9, we have the real reason why Stoop Kid won't leave his stoop. Well, let's take a stroll down memory lane to one of our favorite shows that I used to watch when I was a kid, and that's Hey Arnold. I know there are a lot of dark theories about this show in parts 1 and 2, and we for sure made its own video, a Hey Arnold dark theories, so make sure you guys stay tuned for that because it's gonna be coming out pretty soon. But I'm here again to ruin this TV show for you guys, so buckle right on up. Stoop Kid is a teenage boy who lives on a stoop and harasses people as they walk by. Oh, and he literally never leaves his stoop, not even to pee. I personally don't know how he's still functioning or how his kidneys haven't exploded yet, but there's a dark reason as to why Stoop Kid likes to hang out on his stoop. Did the word stoop lose all meaning to you guys? Because I've said it way too many times right now. Anyways, it is believed that Stoop Kid is actually being paid to be a lookout for a huge drug operation that is happening inside. This is the reason why he's so scared and paranoid. Well, there's one episode where Arnold helped him leave his post, and I wonder if the drug dealers or mafia are after him now. Drake is a burnout, and this takes us over to number 8. Drake and Josh was a TV show on Nickelodeon about two very different stepbrothers living together. This series ran from 2004 to 2007, so it didn't last very long, but apparently one of the main characters, Drake, became addicted to smoking weed. This theory kind of makes sense though. Hear me out. After season 1, Drake started to smoke and he became more of an airhead, laid back, and he started to do poorly in school. He also developed a really big appetite and he never gained weight. So what could be the explanation of all of this? Well, Drake's a burnout and here's proof.
Drake? What? Where's the door hole?
Goes right there. See, I drew it with a magic marker.
You were supposed to cut it out with the power saw.
Dude, I'm gonna.
Oh, really?
Yes.
So go get the power saw.
Okay, I will.
Oh, and his other two friends, Scotty and Trevor, might have been the ones who started his addiction, and maybe they're even his supplier. Number 7. Alright, this next theory will have you scratching your heads, just like, well, if not you guys is, I definitely scratched my head on this one. Well, let's take a trip down to Bikini Bottom. You guys know where I'm going with this one. Well, in a previous video, we all learned that Bikini Bottom is a result of a nuclear fallout, right? Makes sense. Well, things are about to get even more dark with this next theory, so adjust your oxygen masks because things are about to get strange. In SpongeBob SquarePants, there might be a weird family connection that will shock viewers. Apparently, SpongeBob's pet snail, Gary, and Patrick are actually first cousins. So what you're telling me is that SpongeBob is keeping Patrick's cousin as a pet. Is this real life right now? Maybe Patrick is pretending to be SpongeBob's friend so that he can free him. And if you guys notice that Patrick is never in SpongeBob's house, or maybe there's an even darker theory or a darker truth to this theory. What if Patrick stole sold Gary to SpongeBob. I guess you would call that snail trafficking. Well, I guess I don't know, but either way, that's pretty disturbing if you ask me. The Fairly Odd Parents flies into our list at number 6. Okay guys, prepare yourselves for this one, because this next theory will have you questioning your childhood. The Fairly Odd Parents was a show about a 10-year-old boy who is neglected by his parents and tortured by his babysitter. But one day he was granted 2 fairy godparents named Cosmo and Wanda, who granted him every wish. I know growing up I watched this cartoon all the time. Well, it sounds like a miserable premise for a show, doesn't it? Well, what if I told you that these 2 godparents were actually just his imagination and the result of drugs? Well, apparently Cosmo and Wanda are metaphors for the antidepressants Zoloft and Prozac. It could also be argued that when his wishes don't go as planned, those are just the side effects of misusing the drugs. Okay, now that my childhood is over, let's move on. Drake and Josh crash this list just like that at number 5. I personally never watched this show, but I just couldn't ignore this dark theory. This show is about 2 stepbrothers who live together despite being different from one another, but this theory isn't exactly about the 2 brothers. It's about another character from the show called Crazy Steve, who is an insane employee who works at the local theater. Well, after the final season, Crazy Steve murdered Drake and Josh, kidnapped their sister Megan, took her to Seattle, forced her to change her name to Carly, made her call him Spencer, and he also made her pretend that he is her brother. Which brings us to the plot of iCarly. Doug Funny is a racist, and this crazy theory brings us to number 4. Yeah, that's right. Doug makes another appearance on our list, and I kid you not, it's probably my favorite cartoon on this list, one of my favorite cartoons on this list. I loved it. But what is up with this show having a ton of dark theories? Well, this one makes me really sad because apparently Doug is not only insane, but he's a bit of a racist. I guess I can't be friends with Doug. The Huffington Post believes that Doug and his family were the only white people in the show because Nickelodeon was catering to a white audience. But I was a brown kid growing up. I couldn't relate to the characters, but I still enjoyed you, Doug. Well, every other character in the show are different. I mean, they're like a variety of different colors. So this article is saying that the show Doug is showing kids that only the white race is worthy of the spotlight and all the other skin tones must remain in the background. I mean, I used to love Doug, and now this dark theory ruined the show for me. Number 3, Doug escaped from an insane asylum. Doug is a show about a 6th grader, one of my favorite shows growing up as a kid. Well, he recently moved to a new town and attempts to fit in. Sounds innocent enough, right? But what if I told you guys that Doug was originally locked up in an insane asylum, but he escaped, and now he is trying to convince people that he's just a harmless young boy? Well, we all know that Doug has a ton of daydreams in order to escape reality, but what if these so-called harmless daydreams are actually his mind playing tricks on him? Most of the time, his daydreams cause him to literally almost die, and no one seems to really care. For example, there's one episode where Doug is literally having a hallucination while sitting in the middle of a road during heavy traffic. Oh, and another episode, if you guys remember this one, he blacks out while he was driving a soapbox racer that was falling down the hill. I mean, what is going on? Brings us to number 2. Is this how that they can afford to live in such a big house? Did you guys ever question it? Well, Dee Dee is a part-time teacher, and we can all assume what she does with the rest of her time. I just hope Tommy doesn't grow up and find some of her videos in the house, cause that would be hella awkward. So this theory was started after some of the animators began drawing her in seductive clothing. I don't know why they would ruin the cartoon like that. Obviously none of the drawings of her ever made it to the show, so why bother? I guess the animators must have been pretty bored because, well, they have a crazy imagination, because I would never imagine Diddy being an adult performer. I don't know if I believe this one, but I guess you just never know what people do in their private time. Timmy is a mistreated child, and this takes us to number 1. Here's another dark theory from the Fairly Odd Parents. Well, apparently Timmy is a young kid with an extremely rough life. His grandparents died in a car crash when he was younger, so that's why he imagines that they are watching over him, because his parents obviously don't care about him. Okay, but no, seriously, I think they need to call CIS on his family. His parents are so neglectful that they even hired a babysitter who physically and mentally abuses him. Oh yeah, and this dark theory goes on to say that Mr. Crocker, his mentally unstable teacher, might be a child predator who is attempting to steal his innocence. And he has made many attempts to lure him. I mean, pretty damn gross. I never knew Timmy had it so rough. I feel really bad for the kid. The Real Inspector Gadget starts off our list in at number 10. Would the Real Inspector Gadget please stand up? I remember watching this show as a kid and being really jealous of his helicopter hat, but now I'm a little upset with him because I feel like I've been lied to my entire life, and you know what? I'll tell you why. Okay, do you guys remember Dr. Claw? Well, let me refresh your memories because I know it's been a while.
Here's one for the road gadgets. I feel like singing.
Dr. Claw is the villain of the show, and we never get to actually see his face. Well, as it turns out, there's a really good reason for that. According to some dark fan theories, Dr. Claw is the original Inspector Gadget. Well, let's dive a little deeper, shall we? Apparently, Inspector Gadget was a police officer who died while on the job, but since he was such an important part of the police force, the chief decided to build a robot that looked and acted like the original. The only problem with this solution is that the real Inspector Gadget actually ended up surviving, and after he saw how fast he was replaced by a robot, he went insane and he became Dr. Claw. So why do you guys think we never get to see his face? It's probably because he looks exactly like Inspector Gadget and he doesn't want his true identity to be known. Next up, number 9, we have penguins of Madagascar are actually dead soldiers. Yeah, and the fun doesn't stop there. Apparently the penguins and other animals in the show are actually reincarnated people. Reddit user Soul Trader believes that the penguins specifically were a part of an entire force in World War II and they died in combat, but now they're reincarnated as penguins, so that's why they have very similar tendencies and personalities as World War II soldiers.
Aces. Now, drop and give me 20. Are you hearing me, privates? On your flippers, pronto! What's the matter with you? This little joke of yours is bordering on insubordination.
So wait a minute, so you're telling me that the show is basically about dead souls coming back to Earth as animals, and this is supposed to be targeted towards, you know, the kids? Well, there's just something about this theory that gives me the creeps, so maybe it'd be best for us, you know, to move on and let's see what else we have on this list. Let's just forget that ever happened. Moving on to number 8, cat dog are a product of a nuclear fallout. I mean, I always wondered how that was even possible. And who came up with an idea like that? Let's make a show like a cat and a dog. Let's fuse them together. Well, if you ever watch the show, then you should know that one of the most asked questions is how the heck did they go to the bathroom? I mean, they're fused at the butts. But we usually brush it off because that's not something that we should be worrying about when we're watching a children's cartoon. But this is a list of scary theories, so let's dive a little bit deeper into this unusual situation. Cat dog are two creatures that seem to be fused together. They share one body, but two heads. It's like a science experiment gone wrong or something. Cat dog is set in a post-apocalyptic world where they're the products of a nuclear fallout. I definitely wouldn't want to be a part of that world. I mean, can you imagine not being able to go to the washroom for the rest of your life? I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I'd be pretty miserable. I would be grumpy all the time. Roger from Doug was abused as a child, and this takes us to number 7. This theory tries to explain why Roger was such a bully on the show. There are a ton of people who believe that Roger's mean spirit and bullying derived from him being abused and neglected from his parents. That's why he tried to form his own family with all of the other bullies on the show. I mean, things just got real. Psychologists say just about all aggressive bullies are victims of bullying themselves, which almost always involves a family member or a close acquaintance. I never realized how serious cartoons could be until I started doing research for this video. I was like, whoa. Bikini Bottom is actually a nuclear wasteland, and this scary theory takes us to number 6. Did you guys ever get the feeling that Bikini Bottom is a weird place? Well, I know SpongeBob SquarePants is just a cartoon, but it doesn't look like the bottom of the ocean. So let's step outside the fact that this is just a cartoon. Bikini Bottom is named after its location. It's located at the bottom of Bikini Atoll, which exists in real life. And between 1946 and 1958, more than 67 nuclear devices were detonated in this area, including bombs that exploded underwater. So basically, the characters of SpongeBob SquarePants aren't just a bunch of funny characters. They are the result of radiation poisoning and mutation. Things get pretty messed up at number 5. Max and Ruby are dead. Okay, I'm sorry to do this to you guys, but maybe our favorite, or at least our favorite bunnies, are actually dead. Okay, no, seriously, am I the only one that finds Ruby to be highly annoying and overprotective?
Racer! Later, Max. Here you go. You can play with Pinocchio.
No one wants to play with Pinocchio. Back off, Ruby. Okay, let's get back to the theory. In the past, Max and Ruby's parents were nowhere to be found in the episode, which made a lot of people think that they were being neglected. This made viewers come up with a disturbing story. Apparently, it's not that uncommon for female rabbits to absorb their unborn babies. So people are saying that Max and Ruby were absorbed by their mother before birth, and they're actually dead, so we are seeing them in bunny heaven. I mean, this list got dark really fast. Rocko's modern life is pretty perverted, and this takes us to number 4. This show aired from 1993 to 1996, so I was about 3 to 6 years old at the time, and it was targeted towards both children and adults, but it suffered from a lot of controversy because it had a lot of sexual innuendos and other content that was definitely not appropriate for kids. So let's break down some of these most shocking things in this show. Keep in mind that as children, we didn't understand just how bad this show was to, our innocent minds. First of all, when Rocko lost his job at the comic store, he became a phone sex operator and things became extremely awkward like real quick.
Oh baby, oh baby, oh baby. Rocko.
In one episode, Rocko visited a doctor who cupped his eyeballs and asked him to cough. This is something that doctors do during a physical, but instead of his eyeballs, they're cupping something else. Oh, and the doctor's name was Bendova. Like bend over? Yeah, you guys get it. And let's not forget about the tunnel of love. A couple enters the tunnel, and when they come out the other side, they have kids in their boat. See, I told you guys things are pretty messed up with the show. It's one thing if this was targeted towards adults, but it's another when kids are invited to watch it. Number 3, Rocko's neighbor was definitely way too into him. It's no secret that Rocko's Modern Life was a cartoon that children should definitely not watch. It was full of innuendos and inappropriate humor, but this next theory will haunt your dreams. Well, there was one episode where Rocko's neighbor was a little bit too friendly for our liking. Apparently their neighbor is a and he's on the registry, and he's trying to lure Rocko into coming over to his house. In that episode, he tried to use racy videos inviting him over, and he even tried to inappropriately dance with him. It was just super awkward to watch. Like, not as a kid, because I'm not thinking like that as a kid, but watching it as an adult, you find out about a lot of things. Actually, this whole show was super awkward, so I have nothing more to say about it, so let's move on. Mr. Dink is a and this scary thought brings us to number 2. Well, Mr. Dink, for you guys who don't know, it's a character from a show called Doug. I remember this one like a little bit. Well, he's a middle-aged man who always seems to be around Doug. He can be seen at school and at home since they're neighbors. Some might say that they have a good teacher-student relationship, but one user on Creepypasta Wiki page has a more dark conclusion to this. In his theory, he says that Mr. Dink is a creeper who is trying to groom Doug, and so now, after being a victim, Doug becomes addicted to LSD to cope with the stress. So that explains a lot of his weird daydream scenes from the show. They're all just Doug tripping after taking drugs. I guess it's a simple explanation for that one, but a pretty dark theory. And finally, topping our list at number 1, we have the 7 deadly sins. Yeah, that's right. SpongeBob SquarePants makes another appearance on this list. We could probably do like a top 10 SpongeBob on its own if we haven't already. I don't know. We've done a lot on this channel. Well, I guess this show is just full of crazy dark fan theories, so let's jump into another one. I mean, shall we? Apparently one of the main characters represents one of the 7 deadly sins. Patrick is sloth because he's lazy, Squidward is wrath because he's always angry, Mr. Krabs is greed, and that's pretty obvious in the show. Sandy represents pride, Plankton is envy, Gary is gluttony because he's always hungry, and SpongeBob is lust. Now that I'm aware of this theory, I actually look at these characters very different when I watch it, and yeah, I'm still watching SpongeBob. I mean, who isn't? And I don't know if you're gonna be able to watch this show the same way ever again after learning about that. Okay, so the true origin of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles starts off this list at number 10. Try to say that 10 times fast. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Okay, so who else was a huge fan of these lean green fighting machines? I was definitely a huge fan of the movies, and I was so happy that the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles became a TV series, and it actually aired on Nickelodeon between 2012 and 2017. According to the show, Splinter found 4 baby turtles covered in an alien mutagen. But let's challenge this theory for a moment. How would a turtle be physically attracted to April O'Neil, and what's up with her insatiable hunger for pizza? These don't sound like typical turtle tendencies or instincts. I'm no expert, so I'm probably wrong on this one. Well, a Reddit user by the name of Killjoy95 claims that Splinter was so desperate to have his own children, especially since his daughter Maiwa disappeared. So he kidnapped human babies, and he might have accidentally, or maybe did it on purpose, he exposed them to mutant gens with turtle DNA. I mean, wait a minute. So Splinter is a kidnapper. I always knew something was fishy was going on with Master Splinter. I just didn't know he was a kidnapper though. That one was like, I was young. But now as an adult, I fully understand the show. Do you guys remember this one? I kinda do. Well, let's take a look at their parenting history, shall we? The Thornberrys are pretty wrapped up in their own work, which makes them way too busy to focus on their kids. They took their kids out of school at a young age, and they go on some pretty wild safaris with dangerous animals on a daily basis. I mean, who does that? Their kids are always running off and putting themselves in harm's way, and they don't even seem to notice. Doesn't this sound, you know, a little bit concerning to you guys? It seems like they're more interested in the mating rituals of rhinos than what's going on with their own kids. Maybe back home someone called CAS on them, so they keep moving from place to place, so you know what, they won't be found. And because they neglect their children, Eliza tries to cope with her depression, and she has delusions that she can talk to animals because they're the only ones that seem to care about her. All of the Thornberrys were on drugs, and this brings us to number 8. I'm honestly not surprised with this one. First off, we have a little girl who thinks she can talk to animals, and we have a weird emo teenager, a child who is from the wild in Nigel Thornberry. I don't know, but there's something off with this guy. So this theory helps explain what's going on. In the show they say that Eliza's spell was cast by a witch that lets her talk to animals. But I think the witch just gave her acid. I mean, this theory goes on to say that Nigel is on crack, which explains how he's so damn energetic, and Debbie might be on coke, which is why she's so irritable. She eats a lot and she never wants to be bothered. I think the Thornberrys should be sent to rehab like immediately. Next up, number 7, we're talking about the Power Rangers. Well, this dark theory ruined the Power Rangers for me. Well, this dark theory states that the Power Rangers are actually child soldiers who are forced to fight against their will. I mean, is this real life right now? That just got deep. That got dark. Well, let's see. Zordon literally recruits teenagers from Earth to fight in a war between his people and Rita Repulsa. But in order to do this, he gives them special gadgets, bright outfits, and magical abilities. So now that they're blinded by all this cool stuff, because you know what, who would it be? He essentially forces them to fight against hundreds of monsters in a war that they shouldn't even be a part of. They should be teenagers, you know, going on dates, doing homework. Well, I hated homework. I skipped out on homework and just went out with my buddies. Jimmy Neutron and his friends are genetically engineered children, and this dark theory brings us to number 6. I used to love watching the show after school, and for those of you guys who are crazy enough to not watch it, well, and if you guys don't know what it's about, you guys are insane. What is your childhood? Well, Jimmy Neutron is this boy, and he lives in Retroville. He's basically a boy genius who comes up with crazy inventions and takes his friends on wild adventures that usually don't go his way. But now I'm shocked to find out that Jimmy and his friends are all genetically engineered kids who are given a superpower. Then they were placed in a fake family in order to bring out their powers, and the rest of the town is made up of government employed actors. It's sort of like the Truman Show going on here. This explains to why the town never really seems to think that this kid and his friends are weird. He's literally 11 years old and he goes to school in his homemade rocket. If this wasn't a made up town, someone would be calling Child Protective Services and he would be taken away to a foster family where he would never be able to build crazy inventions ever again. Stu from Rugrats is suffering from clinical depression, and this brings us to number 5. When you stop to think about it, it's kind of obvious that Stu Pickles isn't acting like, you know, how a father should be acting.
Stu, what are you doing?
Making chocolate pudding.
It's 4 o'clock in the morning. Why on earth are you making chocolate pudding?
Because I've lost control of my life.
In one episode, he wakes up at 4 a.m. just to make pudding because his life is just falling apart. Then in another episode, he falls off the roof, starts acting and talking like a baby. And let's not forget the fact that Tommy can basically do whatever he wants to do and whenever he wants to do it. So this makes me wonder, is Stu, is he actually alright? Are you alright, Stu? Okay, no, seriously, I think he needs to be evaluated and get some help because things are not going to get any easier. Some people are saying that he's actually clinically depressed and has ADHD because he is restless, hyperactive, has impaired judgment, a short attention span, he's forgetful, and he's easily distracted. I mean, this show is a lot darker than what I remember it to be when I was a kid. It's a number 4. Timmy's life has been hard enough. I mean, we've talked about Timmy on this channel enough times, right? Well, why doesn't his father love him? In our other Nickelodeon theory videos, we learned that Timmy's parents are pretty neglectful, so as a lot of the parents on these TV shows, and they continuously hire the babysitter from hell to watch their son. I'm pretty sure their babysitter is a psychopath and abuses Timmy, but that's a whole other theory. So getting back to Timmy's dad, apparently he hates his son and wishes that he was never born. In one episode, his dad talks about how his life was ruined years ago, and Timmy asked how long ago did that happen, and his dad responded by asking, how old are you? I mean, ouch, Mr. Turner, shots are being fired. Imagine that your own parent sees you as the reason why their life fell apart. I mean, that'd be pretty depressing. Dora the Explorer brings us to number 3. This show has helped a ton of children learn about nature, animals, and Spanish. This show is super popular with kids. It's how I learned to say hola. But with all good things, there is also a dark side. Many people believe that Dora has some mental health issues. People believe that she is imagining all of these adventures and characters from a mental institution, and they also believe that she hallucinates a lot. That's why it could be argued that she's talking to herself and hearing voices in her head from the audience. Max and Ruby's dead parents, and this dark theory takes us by storm at number 2. Max and Ruby is a cartoon about 2 young bunny siblings who get into a lot of adventures. But the crazy thing is, we never see their parents, so what really happened to them? Well, the real reason why their parents aren't seen on the show is because they died in a car accident on their way to pick up Ruby from Bunny Scouts. Max was in the car and survived, but now suffers from brain injuries, so that's why Max is always messing up in the show, and his sister Ruby has to take care of him and watch him closely. I mean, pretty interesting. It seems like a logical theory to me. Finally, number 1, we have each character on the SpongeBob SquarePants represents a different type of drug. Okay, you know what? This actually makes a lot of sense when you stop to think about how crazy all the characters are. Okay, let's break this down. SpongeBob is on meth because he's super energetic and a little bit paranoid. Patrick is a stoner. Squidward is on heroin. Mr. Krabs on coke. Sandy is an alcoholic. I mean, this theory is starting to make a lot of sense. I never realized how dysfunctional all of these characters are. And quick, someone needs to open up a rehab in Bikini Bottom or get some law enforcement down there because a lot of people need to be getting arrested right now. Or at least we should start a Narcotics Anonymous because they need help, and they need help now. In at number 10. During the show Hey Arnold, Arnold was a young boy who was living with his grandparents. On the surface, his grandparents seemed like sweet and loving, caregivers, but there might be something more sinister going on there. Do you guys remember the movie The Visit? Well, some fans of the show believe that at sundown, Arnold's grandparents locked him up in his room so that they can carry out some pretty disturbing things. Some believe that the grandparents go out at night and hunt children, while others think that they have a secret room in the basement, and that's where they perform creepy rituals. And then there is the other theory that his grandmother might have had some form of schizophrenia because she was always going off and having some crazy adventures, and she doesn't seem to care what the consequences would be. But as it turns out, those adventures might just be some figment of her imagination, and if this theory is true, then Hey Arnold is a pretty dark show. Well, Krabby Patty's meat slides onto this list at number 9. According to a fan theory on Twitter, Krabby Patty's secret formula is a kept secret for a various obvious reason. Well, his secret formula is crabs. I mean, think about it. The only other crabs that we ever see in the show are the occasional out-of-town crab, Mr. Krabs himself, and his mother. I mean, where the heck are the rest of the crabs? Well, I'll give you guys a hint. They're in the burger. If that is true, then that makes Mr. Krabs a cannibal and he's just rolling in the dough. Alright guys, it actually gets worse than that. Just look at the Krusty Krab restaurant. Doesn't it look familiar to you guys? It looks exactly like a crab trap. I'm literally shook on this one. I don't think I can enjoy the show anymore. I mean, that is pretty insane, but pretty plausible. Pinky and the Brain, one of my favorite cartoons, makes its way onto this list at number 8. They're Pinky and the Brain, yes, Pinky and the Brain. One is a genius and the other's insane. Okay, I don't want your guys' ears to continue bleeding, so grab that tissue behind you guys. And there's no tissue. Well, I'm sorry about that, and good luck getting that out of your brain today. Pinky and the Brain, like it's pretty contagious. One of the reasons why I love the show, you get to hear the intro every single episode. So the lyrics of the song actually tell us that one is a genius and the other is insane. I think we all believe that Pinky is a dumb one and Brain is a smart one. I'm pretty sure I came to that conclusion. But what if we had it all wrong all these years? I mean, did I just shatter your childhood? Well, let's think about it for a minute, because it actually makes a lot of sense. The Brain tries to take over the world every single day, but his plan always fails. Pinky is actually pretending to be dumb because he finds it hilarious. Some people also believe that Pinky is a genius who can escape at any time, but he's running tests on the Brain. So essentially the Brain is Pinky's lab rat. And you know what? I might be able to get on board with this theory. I mean, it kind of makes sense here. What do you guys think? Let's move up on this list at number 7 with Roger Klotz Has a Rickets. Roger Klotz is a character from Doug, and he is the villain of the show who usually bullies Doug. But as it turns out, Roger is also dealing with an illness of his own. Doug might be insane, but Rogers is suffering from a rickets. Rickets is a skeleton disorder that is caused by vitamin D deficiency or lack of calcium in the diet. The main reason why people are saying this because Rogers have bow legs, which is a classic sign of rickets. This disease causes bones to soften, so Roger could be experiencing pain, broken bones, and muscle cramps. Maybe rickets is the reason why he's so mean. He's constantly in pain, so he acts like a bully to distract himself from. I think he just needs to go outside in the sun more and pour himself a nice big glass of milk. Maybe he'll feel a lot better. Moving up this list, and at number 6 we have Steve from Blue's Clues. As it turns out, Steve is actually an inmate who is hallucinating all the time. Think about it, Steve thinks that he's living in a house, but he's actually only moving within his cell. Pay close attention when he changes rooms. His legs move up and down, but the position of the TV stays the same. What? Where? Right there. Here? And he doesn't even use doors when he leaves a room because they're all in his imagination. Well, do you guys still need more convincing? Alright, I'll give you guys a little bit more. Other people are never in the same room as him, and the other characters that he sees are just an imaginary dog or other animated household objects. So Steve is all alone in his cell, and he's clearly hearing voices. Steve is crazy. Crazy Steve is what we call him. He also doesn't have access to dangerous items such as knives and scissors, which are all things that inmates would never have. I mean, things just got pretty deep. To number 5. He is keeping a massive secret from us all, and to be honest, I feel a little bit betrayed. So what's his big secret? Well, Squidward isn't even a squid. Okay, hold on, wait a minute. What the heck is he? Well, let's review his anatomy. People are so funny. People are researching this. Well, he has 6 limbs and his name is Squidward. So we all just assume that he's a squid, but he's not actually. I mean, that's not the case in this situation. Some fan theories have claimed that Squidward is actually an octopus who lost 2 limbs. So basically, Squidward is an octopus that only has 6 limbs. I mean, it's a pretty creepy theory when you think about it. And was this because of a birth defect, or did he lose it in an epic fight over some Krabby Patties? Maybe this is the reason why Squidward is so miserable all the time. Maybe he's in pain all the time as well. He knows that he is living a lie and he just wants to be himself. Arnold's parents come crashing onto this list at number 4. And of course we're talking about the show Hey Arnold. Well, according to one crazy dark theory, Hey Arnold's parents died from a drug overdose. I mean, wait, what? Well, people believe that his parents are gone because they were drug addicts, which explains why Arnold's head is disfigured. His grandparents couldn't bear to tell him the truth about their death, so they just made up a story so that his parents would look like heroes. The show is actually full of a ton of dark theories, so if you guys want us to do a standalone video on this one, I mean, we could do a top 10 individually on this one. Let me know in the comment section below. And also let us know what top 10 videos you guys would like to see next in the comment section. Hey Arnold's Real Parents is back on this list again at number 3. The show ran for almost 8 years without ever really really clarifying who Arnold's parents are and what really happened to them. I mean, I wondered for years, but get ready for your brain to explode. Arnold's real parents are his grandparents, and they've been lying to him for all of these years. They either suffer from dementia or another mental illness, so that's why the reason why Phil and Gertie are lying to their actual son, and it kind of explains Arnold's oddly shaped head. So basically, because they had Arnold at such a young age, that puts them at a higher risk for a child born with a deformity. Arnold suffers from Arnold-Chiari syndrome, and that's why his parents decided to call him Arnold. Penelope Taint killed Amanda Bynes on The Amanda Show in at number 2. Never really watched this show. Well, The Amanda Show featured a character named Penelope who would constantly break into The Amanda Show studio in order to get close to her idol. She was really violent with the staff and other actors on set, and she would do just about anything to get close to Amanda.
Get back in line!
Sir, apparently you don't realize who I am, please. My name is Penelope Taint. I just happen to be Amanda's #1 fan, please.
Oh, yeah. Everybody's her #1 fan.
Oh, yeah? Does everybody have Amanda's face tattooed on their abdomen?
As you guys could probably tell, Penelope looks almost identical to Amanda Bynes. But what if Penelope's crazy, obsessive personality caused her to kill Amanda so that she could take her place? There really isn't a closer way to get Amanda except to become her, and this is why they are never seen together. Amanda Bynes isn't playing Penelope's character. Penelope is playing Amanda. A little confusing to get my head around that, but yeah. Well, let's move on. Now at number 1, everyone from Midnight Society is actually dead. If you guys have never seen Are You Afraid of the Dark, then what is wrong with you? Okay, no, seriously, you haven't lived if you've never seen this show. It was amazing as a kid. I don't know if I can rewatch it now as an adult. It might be a little cheesy, but it was good for its time. But for you guys who haven't seen it, it's about a group of friends who call themselves the Midnight Society. It's really creepy. It was pretty cool though. Well, they meet up in the forest and they like to tell scary stories around the campfire. But apparently all of the members, well, they're actually all dead and they never even existed at all. I mean, this theory kind of hurts my brain, but I can kind of see this being true. We never actually see their home life. They meet up late at night on school nights, so wouldn't their parents be like, where the heck are you? What are you guys doing? Why are you by a campfire at midnight? I don't know too many 14-year-olds who are allowed to go deep into a dark, scary forest without a cell phone and tell scary stories at night. That just doesn't seem like it would fly nowadays with parents. Oh, and they tell a lot of these scary stories in graveyards, so maybe there are ghosts telling stories. I mean, this is pretty scary, so let's just leave it there.
Oh guys, that's the end of this video. Let's get straight to the video. Alright guys, so this is officially the end of this video. I just want to say that was pretty mess. So I'm not going to bother worrying about that anymore. So if you just smash the subscribe button, smash the like button, don't forget to comment down below if you want to see anything like this next. And if you saw anything weird happen, or if you thought something was weird in the entire video, please do that. Don't forget to follow me down below alongside my girlfriends and my artist profile for my music. Don't forget to bang that bell button so you don't miss any of my crazy content. With that being said guys, I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.